Hi Facebook, it's Heather with FAIR here again. This time I'm joined by Congressman Clay Higgins from Louisiana. Congressman Higgins, as you know, earlier this summer there were some very vocal and very aggressive calls for the Abolish ICE movement, as it was known. You actually, in response to that, introduced and passed some legislation to support the law officers, the men and women of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Can you explain to our followers why you felt that was so important?
Well, it was a response to a bill introduced, actual legislation introduced by some of my Democratic colleagues who, by the way, individually, I have a great deal of admiration and respect for many of my colleagues across the aisle. But as a body, they become quite vitriolic in their hatred for our president. It's become clear they hate President Trump more than they love America, and they've shifted far to the left. And they introduced legislation calling for the abolishment of ICE, which was insane. So our resolution was a response to their legislation that they introduced. Now, they later backed off from that. They wouldn't vote for their own, you understand? They wouldn't vote for their own legislation. So why would you introduce legislation that you wouldn't support if it comes to the floor? And our resolution simply stated that we support ICE and its mission and law enforcement in general across America, that we're a nation of law and order, and these men and women from sea to shining sea to wear a badge, perform a very dangerous job, and they deserve our respect. ICE is one of the most professional and tactical law enforcement agencies in the world. All they do is serve felony warrants on dangerous criminal aliens. Last year, they arrested 127,000 criminal aliens with felony warrants. Now, think about what that means. They're sending tactical teams in many cases, the sanctuary cities, because that's where these guys go and hide, you understand? And so they're not getting the kind of assistance they could get from local law enforcement because of the sanctuary status of those areas. So they're going into the most inaccessible areas of the country to arrest some of the most dangerous criminal aliens in the country. And they arrested 127,000 of them last year. They closed over 140,000 open case files of serious crimes, including murder and sex crimes and very, very brutal crimes of violence, drug crimes, weapons violations, etc. And that's the job that ICE does. So if you support the abolishment of ICE, and that's the job that they're doing, those are the kind of criminals that they're arresting, then you must support the criminals that they're arresting. How can you support the abolishment of ICE, so arresting 127,000 criminal aliens with felony warrants, without saying that you're in support of the felonies that they're committing? So it was a horrible legislation that was introduced by my colleagues across the aisle. Our resolution was squared away. Leadership brought it to the floor. It passed, of course, by Republican vote. 133 of my colleagues across the aisle voted present, which to me reflected a lack of conviction of, where you stand. You should vote yes on something or vote no, but to vote present on something that's so ideologically significant to our nation is, I believe, reflective of where the Democratic Party is moving right now. They're quite in disarray, and unfortunately, again, I say again, as many of those men and women over there, I have a great deal of love and respect for individually, but as a body, they've shifted quite far to the left. And our ICE resolution, authored out of my office, made a very clear point to the country.
Yeah, thank you so much. And this was a FAIR-supported resolution supported by both our office and by all of our followers. We really appreciated you guys taking the time to introduce that. If our followers could, in the comments now, please drop your support for the men and women of ICE. Right now, they're getting a lot of negative backlash, unfortunately, from the American public, and they need to hear from the people that support them. Congressman Higgins, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for allowing me to be on with you.
Of course. Have a great day.
Yes, ma'am.